Well, welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and today we're going to have the forbidden discussion: an all-region Pokemon game. Now, why are we even talking about something so crazy? Well, it's because of the Pokemon Company. That it's that time of year again, and we're having our Pokemon Day countdown. Or maybe in this case, a count up, and the Pokemon Company has been featuring every region, bringing back that nostalgia, and it's all looking like it's going straight into Pokemon Day. So on February 27th, Pokemon Day, the anniversary of Pokemon, we have what would be some kind of feature for the 8th region of Pokemon. That kicks off Generation 8. That's our reveal. We had Pokemon Day reveal Pokemon Sun and Moon, so that is the anticipation for the Pokemon Switch 2019 games. But this has also caused people to just kind of have that conversation, maybe with themselves, maybe with others, about something that means a lot to every Pokemon fan out there, and that it is a multi-region Pokemon game, or maybe a Pokemon game that has every region. Now, I feel like the latter has become a lot more realistic in recent years and generations, but it is still something fun to talk about, and the way that the Pokemon Company has been setting this up is also pretty interesting. Who would you choose to accompany you on your Pokemon journey for Kanto? Visit Johto. We're curious, trainers. Which mysterious Johto landmark would you most like to explore? Hoenn. Coolness, beauty, cleverness, cuteness, or toughness? Which contest category would you enter your Pokemon in? So, every little tagline is talking about what would you do in that region? How are you going to explore and experience that part of the Pokemon world? So that's kind of why people are like, what if they pull the ultimate craziness? Would it even be possible to have the Generation 8 region and then be able to freely explore most of the Pokemon world and stuff like that? And because people are talking about it, I mostly want to talk about it. Now, as for me, I feel like it's impossible at this point, as sad as it is. So now I just kind of want to take this into the general Pokemon world discussion. I want to bring up what people were talking about. And what I find weird about it is that I've never really had the all-region Pokemon game discussion on my channel before. I've talked about multi-region a little bit, and that's mostly because Heart Gold, Soul Silver's best Pokemon games. That's the reason behind it. Gold, Silver, Crystal, very beloved, and it's kind of on every Pokemon fan's wish list to have multi-region or an all-region Pokemon game. So let's go and talk about how that would be possible, but unfortunately I just don't think like it is possible anymore. I stopped dreaming about that fantasy once we got Unova, because I was thinking, maybe 4 regions would kind of be pushing it. The geography of the Pokemon world is so ambiguous and all over the place right now. Like, the way they threw in Unova, well, it took the nice little setup that we had going, because when you look at the first 4 regions, Sinnoh, Johto, Kanto, Hoenn, it's all based on Japan, it's all in the same area. And then Unova just kind of came in, it's like, boom, takes up a decent portion of the Pokemon world. We have all of these other, like, unnamed places, and nothing that we've seen before is identifiable, so that flips it all on, like, the other side of the world, and now the Pokemon world's expanding. There's spin-off games, there's all kinds of other regions, like the Ore region, that have been introduced over time. So I feel like that made it to where now the Pokemon world is kind of like this ambiguous thing that they just keep slotting regions and new Pokemon in, and by that point, it's like 5 regions. Exploring all 5 regions, while cool, I feel like would be more tiring, and I'd have no reason to maybe visit certain regions, or I wouldn't really find too much appeal of what's going on. Because it kind of feels like what you would want most out of it is a greatest hits of those regions, or those Pokemon games, and I think that, you need to do it in the middle of a generation, and not to kick off a generation. So yeah, with this being Generation 8, we already have 2019 Pokemon game confirmed as new Pokemon, and it was confirmed back in like 2017, as well as with the announcement Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So we already know that that's kind of happening, and it would be kind of weird to maybe even overshadow a bit or distract from one or the other. I don't know what would be more important, the new Pokemon, the new region, or going and visiting all of the existing regions. Something's going to lose out, and I feel like it would be too big and then way too ambitious to where, it'd be so overwhelming that you can't really appreciate all of it. So you'd have to have the new Pokemon introduced, and then when you have the all-region Pokemon game, it kind of caps off Pokemon at that point, which is also kind of weird. And how would you explore it? How could you go through all of the regions and progress naturally? That's kind of why I feel like Heart Gold, Soul Silver is the best way of doing it. I feel like the only way you can do a multi-region game is just have 2 regions. You beat the main region, and then you get the freedom and fun to do whatever you want in the other region. And Johto set that up so perfectly, and then Heart Gold, Soul Silver made it even better. Battle Frontier, the most awesome way of like customizing your own Safari Zone, and then you just let it sit for a while and you get super rare Pokemon. I think that's pretty dope. Pokethalon, you can even like do bug catching contests. Like, there was a lot of there was a lot to do between like Johto and Kanto. More was added in Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Kanto, just a classic place to explore. I feel like it is one of the best exploring regions as well, because after the second gym, pretty much free to do whatever you want, which is really cool. Like, people are like, oh, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, so handholdy, it's such a baby's game, even though it's like the least hand-holding game because they didn't tamper with Kanto, which is like the old school least hand-holding region. But I mean, being able to like swap between regions like that, it's pretty cool. And even thinking about it on like a different scale, when it's like, all right, when we had all the regions like side by side, traveling between them made sense. All right, it's like, cool. You could either walk into Kanto from Johto, or you could take the train, just kind of pop up, but then your short little ferry ride to the Sinnoh region. Or maybe if you want a nice little warmer vacation or more tropical kind of style, head on down to the Hoenn region. It's all connected, and it all kind of has a good flow to it. So building the Pokemon world from there started making sense until it didn't. But I still feel like that would be too much. It's like, man, what do I even do? Where would I go? How would I experience it? And it's like, well, secret bases and underground is kind of the same thing. They, you know, Sinnoh rift off of secret bases, just kind of keep that communication going. So, I mean, I think I'd spend more time in Sinnoh. Like, I really wouldn't have a reason to go to the Hoenn region, especially with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. After Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I don't really need to go back to Kanto either, so it's like, yeah, Johto's cool, and they need to have like all the Heart Gold, Soul Silver stuff in Johto. I'm mostly looking for Sinnoh right now. Unova, I'd skip that entirely because I think Generation 5 is one of the worst. Kalos, yeah, I could visit Kalos again. I think it's a cool, beautiful looking region. You know, it's really well made. They have like all the seasons. You have all these regions. You have all these wonderful places to hang out and a lot of cool Pokemon to find. So Kalos, I feel, is very successful. Then the Alola region, I don't know. I feel like Alola is really hard to justify as a region, you know, because it's kind of small, and it was so small that they had to fit multiple ways of encountering Pokemon inside the same route. Something that we really weren't used to. It's like, oh, this patch has a Pokemon that isn't in this patch, that has this patch, that has that patch, and there's some rare Pokemon maybe, and then you have like island scan and stuff. But it seems like you just kind of go through, and I didn't even visit most of the routes afterwards because some of the Pokemon weren't as desirable. Some of the routes were a little more obscure. Like, I don't even remember the names of each island either. The bottom right one, I think, like, no, I don't even remember like how I cut around and cut through everything, and there were like some berry trees and stuff. So I mean, the Alola region, since it all wasn't connected, like, I can respect the idea of having all the islands and what Game Freak did and like basing off Hawaii. Like, it's a cool concept, but actually like exploring it as we have for an established foundation of Pokemon doesn't really work too well. And then kind of throwing that in with all the other regions, I don't know, unless you have to go there, which you probably would just to get all the Alolan Pokemon, that would be a thing. So that's kind of like the main benefit of having an all-region Pokemon game, is that all Pokemon, like, there'd be no excuse to not having all of the Pokemon available inside that game in some way, you know, with the exception of dual versions and stuff. But even then, like, that starts getting crazy, because then there's like, I don't even know how many game exclusive Pokemon are there combined across all the games. Like, probably close to 100, right? That's kind of scary to think about when you'd have to do that inside the game on top of all those things. But I mean, there's still a lot going for all the regions. I just feel like it'd be overwhelming. And then how do you progress through it? You know, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, that made sense. You beat this gets stronger. By the time you make it to Red, your Pokemon are in like the 70s and 80s and stuff. So a third region would be pushing it. And then it's like, well, what makes the Hoenn region such an expert region out of nowhere? That just makes like the challenges happen. So either just kind of like going through backhanding all the same people, and then that kind of gets boring and repetitive because now you have like a 10 to 20 hour plus story, but then you just kind of go through it again, and then you're already kind of set up, and then having to restart your team over for some reason also doesn't really feel that satisfying. And then I don't know what that means for competitive. It's like, oh, I need to get some Sinnoh Pokemon. Cool, I have to beat the game 3 times, actually beat it a 4th time, get all the Sinnoh Pokemon, figure out how to do the training. I don't know, I think it's kind of inflated to that point beyond where it's feasible to have an all-region Pokemon game, unless you do like really weird things for like visiting certain regions, maybe just going there to collect Pokemon. But then it's Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and people didn't really like that. Now, I love the capturing aspect of Pokemon Let's Go. That's seeing all the Pokemon in the wild, which is also kind of exclusive to Let's Go. So if it was all random encounters again, I don't know, I feel like that would take away from it rather substantially. But I had fun just kind of using Pokemon Let's Go as a place to find, see, and catch all the Pokemon at some point. So it really worked out that way, but people were against that, even though I still appreciate it. Like, I think it would be interesting to try to catch all the Pokemon in all the regions in some kind of Let's Go style, but people would grow tired of that. I think that the reason why Game Freak isn't going to do it is because there'd be so much unused content, and the reason why we didn't have the Battle Frontier in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and the reason why these features that fans keep requesting don't find their way into the Pokemon games is because Game Freak says people aren't going to utilize it. We don't think that there's going to be enough incentive for enough players to work on it to make it in the game, so those things just end up being scrapped from the game, even though they are somewhat requested. So I feel like the best way of doing it is pretty much what I've been saying about the Sinnoh region, that I think there's a little too much Sinnoh in the air. There's too many hints, a lot of Generation 4 going on right now in Pokemon, so having Generation 8 and then incorporating Sinnoh in some way, whether it's the Sinnoh region with all new Pokemon to catch inside of it somehow, or you go to Sinnoh post-game, I think that'd be the best way of doing it, and then that just kind of takes off of what we've already had that was successful in Pokemon. You give us all the Heart Gold, Soul Silver features. You know, you have a crazy safari that you can kind of capitalize on. You have the Battle Frontier. Just have limitless opportunities. No matter how you want to play your game, no matter how you want to experience it, you're able to. And then if you're a competitive player, you still have like all the competitive goodies, and you can ignore all the fun stuff if you want. You know, something for everyone, but that does take a large undertaking. I think fitting that in 2 regions would be pretty cool. Also, I really want to go back to Sinnoh because the underground is dope. Like I said before, spend more time in the underground than anything else. So yeah, I think that all the regions, I don't even know if the Switch can handle all the regions. Like the file size would be far too large at that point for all the assets, all the graphics, all the stuff like that. Super Smash Bros. What was that, like 12 gigs or something? Pokemon Let's Go was like 2.3. So technically, take Pokemon Let's Go, you multiply it by 8, and you like barely hit the limit, and you do some like resource management and like copy paste things to maybe bring it closer in line to like 12 gigs like Super Smash Bros. I guess it is possible in that way, but I also don't see it as the start. You know, we already had our Pokemon Switch game. Pokemon Switch cannot be taken back anymore. It's not going to have the same impact as it did because Pokemon Let's Go was that game. So maybe as like the start for Pokemon Switch, very loose possibility. Maybe instead of Generation 7 or like Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon or something, like it has to be, I feel, in the middle of a region, or not region, in the middle of a generation. I think there's way too many generations right now. There's going to be way too many unused features. So it's pretty much just put the best from the Pokemon games in 1 or 2 regions, and then you're going to have something incredibly successful that fans want, or just bring back Pokemon Battle Revolution and everyone will be happy as well. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.